When it comes to Watkins Glen International, it's been known as the spiritual home to road racing in the United States. With its intricate turns and its tough ups and downs, it's a big challenge for many competitors. Tonight, for the Rain Around the Roadies presented by Fort Worth Screen Printing, its best drivers are set to try and see who can try and wrangle in one Brandon Hawken in the championship standings. Who will find their way to victory lane? We'll have to wait and see as we welcome you once more to Watkins Glen, New York. For tonight's race, the McConey Setup Shop, no boot for you 100, live from Watkins Glen. I'm Justin Prince. Alongside of the booth tonight is Blake McCandless with Zach Johnson in the director's seat. What's expected to be an interesting race, a brand new build, a very overcast sky, and what's expected to be a very difficult race, especially with the championship points on the balance tonight, Blake.
That's exactly right, Justin. A brand new build for these drivers, and that's something, particularly with these road course cars, they got a little bit of attention in terms of some of the changes to the tire. We know we even had to kind of refire up the session and tweak the setups because of how drastically it had changed. So we'll see how the drivers are able to come out here and be able to come to a racetrack that they should be very familiar with. I mean, in particular, this version of Watkins Glen has been on this sim as long as it's been around practically. So it'll be interesting to see how they take some new handling characteristics of the car and apply it to a racetrack that, like you said, has been a part of stock car racing on road courses, not only in America, but particularly here in sim racing, has been around for such a long time.
And it's always one where many drivers thrive at, especially if they can find time in sections like the bus stop. But let's talk about that build first of all, because it's going to be a major factor for tonight. Whatever the standings may be, whatever the drivers may be, Brandon Hawken is at the top of the board. He was the quickest in practice, a 111 flat, 4/10 quicker than Colin Firm. But with this build, one of the interesting notes was it was supposed to be more forgiving on the tires on the road courses. Drivers, in turn, had very loose conditions and hotter track conditions earlier on this evening before transitioning to overcast skies for tonight's race action. So, Blake, talk us through some of these changes for the Cup cars tonight and how these drivers you feel are going to react, especially with the track temperature being fairly cool at 79 degrees today.
Well, again, you can see right there on your screen, 65 ambient temperature, 79-degree track temperature. And like you said, this was something that was supposed to allow these cars to be more forgiving. Anybody who's really familiar with the way these road course or these stock cars have handled on road courses in iRacing, and we've talked about it a fair amount on our broadcast the last couple of weeks, is how much rear grip really seems to come into play here at these road courses, which, of course, is a part of the way things work in real life. But there are some adjustments, obviously, to try to make it more closely replicate what you see, obviously, when these stock cars pull onto these road courses in real life. But the biggest thing with the build was, particularly for the ovals, was kind of having track temperature build up a little bit more, have a little bit more influence for the track to be able to hold grip a little more, allow some other lanes to come into play as well. And it appears that with that retention of heat, it makes these cars quite a bit of a handful to drive on these road courses. So obviously we go with different conditions here. We put overcast skies here to allow these guys to have a little more grip, cool the track down a little bit. And, I think it'll be a change, but, there's three guarantees in life, Justin: death, taxes, and Brandon Hawken at the top of the board on a road course in these cars.
You see one car crashing into the fence there. Once again, your qualifying board at the moment is in the midst of 20-minute qualifying, group qualifying. That will also include runoff for drivers to finish their final laps. It's a 110.974, where Brandon Hawken is leading that set board, with Colin Fern second in qualifying, 9/10 off that mark. Will Rogers is currently third, while Nate Stewart and Layden round out the top five. Layden Sabile, specifically, the PR man over from JD Motorsports. So, qualifying with a decent spread, it was around that mark in practice for the top seven as well. Let's take this time to talk a bit more about Watkins Glen itself with our track profile for tonight, shall we? As these cars continue to make their way around the racetrack, 7 turns around this circuit. That in turn has 2.45 miles / 3.94 kilometers of racing action. And when it comes to this track, like, what are the best opportunities for drivers to try and advance position, especially with how tricky this race could be tonight?
Probably one of their best opportunities to make passes as you see down the front straightaway here into turn one. You have a long straightaway. If you get off of turn 7 there with a lot of speed, you obviously carry a lot down into a flat section. You get to carry all that speed down that hill, roll your momentum up through into turn 1. And of course, you mentioned the S's, turns 2 and 3. Very, very high speed portion of this racetrack that with these stock cars, these guys are going to be on edge as they go uphill. And of course, getting into that bus stop can also provide some opportunities there with that long straightaway to try to make some passes tonight. But you kind of got to sort things out before you get through the bus stop. You go in there side by side, a good chance you don't make it out. And if you do, it's going to come with a pretty significant time penalty.
Get all these drivers, by the way, trying to set the footwork screen printing pole award for tonight. $5 award plus 3 bonus points for the championship standings. For all retail and contract screen printing needs, visit fwscreen.com. Remember, shipping is available nationwide from Fort Worth Screen Printing. In regards to these drivers as well tonight, the championship standings have been controlled by the man you're on board with, Brandon Hawken. 195 total points without drops so far. Scott Heckert second in the standings, 163 points. Then we have Will Rogers, Brad Perez, Colin Furr. For Hawken, he's just been dominant, just to say the very least, consistent with every single lap he turns around here.
There's no doubt about it. It doesn't matter what course we go to. Brandon Hawken has just shown the way in these cars. A very accomplished road racer is Brandon Hawken. I mean, you mentioned just in terms of iRating, 7,000 on these road courses. So he knows how to get around them. He knows how to translate that to a stock car as somebody who is very familiar with it. I've seen Hawken out in a lot of oval racing as well, but particularly here on these road courses, we know is where he comes to shine. And it's just really, again, no surprise that it'll be the test to see if any of these guys can really give him a run for his money as they continue to lay down a couple of laps here. This battle for second getting pretty close here. Leighton Sabile, Scott Heckert, Jacob Fisher, Colin Fern, who put on just an incredible battle with Hawken. He about stole that race away from him last week. If you can remember on pit strategy, Hawken was kind of going off in the distance. Fern elected not to pit that last run and nearly did enough to hold Hawken up in just a last lap. Wild turn of events. 899 able to get around the 68. Oh, it's gonna hurt for Colin Fern right there. He went pretty hard there into turn 1. We'll say the brakes went out on that car.
Yeah, if you think back to 2000, Jimmy Johnson, of course, had that wild ride in the now called NASCAR Xfinity Series after the foam blocks of the time. The interesting thing as well for the technical director over at Brenton Built Motorsports, he said on social media prior to tonight's qualifying that it's time to show up and show out. He is not losing to this field again. And one of the drivers you can put in that grouping on top of Colin Fern is the one you just seen, Scott Heckert. He's always been lightning quick, just about every single week in that Dale Senior throwback machine, where it should be expected. We talked about him with real world racing experience, driving on the road course races in 2020 as well in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. He's carried that speed over and has matched, if not been quicker at times, to Brandon Hawken. If you think back to Coda, for example, that was the best example of that.
He has kind of gone toe for toe with them. We've consistently seen that car as bright and colorful as it is. It has definitely been around the picture up at the front of the field for a majority of the races that we've come out to this season. He's definitely been there and been in contention and had his opportunity to be there and contend with Brandon Hawken. It's just been a case of Hawken's consistency putting down these lap times. Heckert's been right there, but just the pace that Hawken's able to carry, just not make any mistakes too. That's been kind of the difference that we've seen so far this season.
As these drivers still have less than 10 minutes to go in qualifying, let's talk about how the race itself breaks down for tonight, Blake, because 40 laps will be your official distance for tonight's competitors. Fuel window expect to go up to 15 laps. There is a fast repair available with today's new build just in case. There will also be a caution at the end of stage 2 after the top 10 crosses the start and finish line, which could open up pit strategy for the final stage.
It certainly could. We saw strategies come into play last week as well. We saw somebody take second in the stage while crossing the line on pit road and kind of shortcutting everybody right there. So we've seen how these stages, particularly you got to think stage 1, no caution. Stage 2, there's a caution flag coming out of it. So how these drivers approach each of those respective stages is something that'll be really, really interesting to see. It's kind of shaking things up a little bit in terms of what you want to go after. If some drivers who are running in the mid portion of the field, running about 6th or 7th, want to sacrifice some points to try and get some track position for the late going, or on the flip side, if they want to try and maybe see if they can tack off a couple of points that otherwise they wouldn't have gotten. So we've seen that happen on these road courses. It really makes it interesting to see when you mix in having a caution, not having a caution, all of that. And then, of course, with the much further distance that we can go on fuel here, you have to think last week we were at Road America. Big difference in the amount of laps that you could turn here on fuel versus what these guys are capable of running it now. So not sure how much that will come into play here with the kind of the fuel window that these guys will have in their cars. But we know that with the buildup we've seen, particularly in the heat with the tires, they may be very important on the long run.
Yeah, this is going to be entertaining to see who can try to adapt the best, especially with just a few hours to adapt to said build today, as Jacob Fisher decides, you know what, let's destroy the cones and skip the entire inner loop, shall we, as he tries to set up an air warm-up lap. 3 drivers yet to set official times: Lee Overton, Sean Garrett, Matt Cherry. Those are the only 3 drivers not to set a time in qualifying. The biggest surprises, though, in qualifying, still among your drivers who are quick in practice and throughout the season: Brad Perez was a top 6 driver in practice. He's 9 3/10 off his best practice time. Bailey Curry is 6/10 off his best time in practice with a 1:12.9 in 11th spot. You also have Will Rogers, who is deep in 6th position. You also have Ryan Vargas, who is currently 8/10 off his best time in practice at 13th position right now run in qualifying. So a couple drivers are really struggling compared to what they were able to do in practice, and one of the main things again is that track temp kicking up.
It is. We've seen it kick up a degree, and of course the sun's starting to poke through a little bit more. You can see visually here a little bit of a reflection off that Flex Seal machine as he works down into turn 1. A little slide. Harder than the wall. This is Ryan Vargas. That's a good little lick into the tire barrier right there, and you know that's kind of a trouble spot. That's what we'll see perhaps a couple of times throughout this race, is when these drivers get back to the throttle, how loose they can be off of turn 1. And if this sun starts to poke through the clouds a little bit more, you can see it a little bit there on your screen that there's kind of some patches here in some of the just complete cloud cover it seems we have over the speedway. There's going to be these patches of sunlight that kind of barrel through, and at certain parts of the track it'll kind of heat up those portions while keeping some other parts of the track very cool.
Absolutely, with 6 minutes to go in qualifying. To recap, it's Brandon Hawken at the top of the board. Jacob Fisher to second, a 1:11.3. Still not enough for the pole quite yet, but it's right in line from what he's been doing all night. He's been one of the drivers who has been the most consistent and hasn't been having as many loose moments on the racetrack compared to some of the others. Fisher, of course, a top 5 contender for the past couple weeks.
Yeah, he has been, and you know, being able to improve a little bit on that practice time here in qualifying, and that's really been the case from almost everybody that we've seen in practice. Jacob Fisher picks up almost 3/10 over his practice time. We've seen Scott Heggard, he was able to pick up just about 2.5 of time. Colin Fern, unfortunately, he's lost about 2/10 here. Hasn't been able to get a lap that I'm sure he would have wanted here in this qualifying session, which again is also unique in and of itself. Obviously, a little bit different here, having a time qualifying. You can obviously see everybody on track. They're in a group. So you have the ability to go out, make a lap or two, reset your car, and try to get as many of those runs in as possible, rather than just going out and making one or maybe two laps here. So trying to give these guys all the opportunity they can to try to get those clean laps in. But a very nice one put down by Fisher in a midfield battle that is very, very close. Jacob Fisher in second, all the way back to Nicholas Sanchez right now in eighth, only separated by about half a second. So that's second through about eighth battle right now, and very, very competitive.
Last week, Jacob Fisher, eighth overall with 40 total points scored, is in the top 11 in the point standings without drops. In the midst of a battle with this car, by the way, for top 10 spot, Ryan Vargas with that advantage with 93 points to Fisher's 91 so far, tied as well with Nate Stewart. Few moments left to go in qualifying, about less than 4 minutes to go. And one of the main things too is now for the drivers who look to try and bump up their times is, compared to the start of the session, there was a lot of traffic for some of the drivers that affected drivers like Fern, like Armstrong, like a couple others. And for this, where, well, having space is going to be critical for the braking zones, that could be important for these drivers who still are looking to bump up their times to have that gap in space, for example, like a Will Rogers we see here.
Yeah, trying to create that gap in space. Will Rogers, who's taking his fair amount of spills here, but it does have some good speed. I've seen tonight the Space Station gaming machine has been on the edge, but trying to carry as much as he can here into the bus stop. Just 3 minutes left, so you really have to think that you're kind of running around that time where you need to start putting in your last lap or two before you reset. Of course, when that clock expires, everybody on track will pretty much have time, if they took the green flag before it expired, to come around and complete their lap. And oh, Will Rogers, there you see on the straightaway, loses it. Ah, man, these guys are fighting a lot of grip. You typically don't see that. He didn't exactly look loose out of the carousel, but the fact that he wasn't able to get the throttle down on the straightaway, that's an interesting note right there for Will Rogers.
Taking a look at one in Raman, and one of the main key things is with this time, by the way, for those just tuning in, for the additional qualifying time and practice time for tonight, is for drivers to get used to the new tire model adjustments for the road courses tonight, and the many, many different changes to the chassis. Many different teams on the open side of the iRacing service having to adjust all day today to massive changes. P10, for example, for the 44 machine, in the Vibe Checker machine. But still allows a few more moments for these drivers to get some times in. About less than 2 minutes left on the board, about 2 to 3 more laps at the very most if you can push it, for some of these competitors to bump their times. The only drivers not to set times are not in the garage area at the moment. Lee Overton, Matt Cherry, 21 drivers expected to take the green flag tonight. And on that mark, still, at this moment, kind of what are some of the main points now, knowing that you've got plenty of quick drivers who are going to be starting in the middle of the pack, starting off this race in stage one?
Yeah, they're going to be just outside the points, and as much as we were mentioning that kind of second through eighth battle is going to be close, you can really say the same thing about 9th through 14th or 15th, rather. It's about that same separation. Brad Perez on back. Pretty close field between Brad Perez, obviously Rahman right there sitting in the 10th position, but then you have Bailey Curry, Ryan Vargas, Arnold Columbia, a bunch of drivers who are just right around kind of that low 1 minute 12 second range, to try and kind of make it interesting to see who's going to be able to manage things over a bit of a longer run and try to get those last couple of stage points to see if they can muster anything. So a pretty tight battle here around this cut line.
Don't forget about Eric Weebland as well in one of the Kentucky racing machines. But overall, what's it going to take for someone to break into victory lane that isn't Brandon Hawken? Outside of a mistake or any bad luck, what's it going to take for someone to win over the 99 tonight?
Well, I'll try to put this in terms of what I would think, because obviously if I was out here, I wouldn't have anything for Hawken anyways. So the one thing you're going to have to hope for is just, first off, a little bit of chaos. Maybe going into turn one. We know how things can sometimes happen here at Watkins Glen International. Very tough to get on the binders. You can lock up easily with these cold tires. Wouldn't be surprised to maybe see an accident. I know a couple of these drivers maybe even anticipating that there may be some chaos when we approach turn one on lap one. And we do have the ability to throw cautions if there's a track block here. We haven't seen it a lot in this series. Don't believe any of the races that I've called we've seen a yellow flag thrown outside of our scheduled kind of competition yellows after a stage and whatnot. But that's the first thing I'm thinking of. And then, of course, you have to get and think outside the box. You think about what Colin Fern was able to do last week, being able to hold off and not come down pit road and nearly steal a win from Brandon Hawk. And you just have to look for something else to get off sequence or off strategy for what Hawkins doing. You just have to do something different. You can't do the same thing. We even saw, I believe it was Jacob Fisher last week who pulled one on us. Maybe it was Scott Heckert that came down pit road, finished second in stages on pit road, and then of course was able to get his tires and get some track position to start in first for that second stage. So you just have to think outside the box if you don't have just the raw speed or raw pace, and obviously a little bit of luck in your hands.
30 seconds to go for drivers before they finish up the qualifying. The last of the drivers to be able to take a time will be Colin Fern. As we've seen, had a bit of an adventure during that lap for Colin Fern. That time by, it is a 1:11.9, 3/10 off his best time. Before we head to your starting grid, I'd like to remind you that today's race is sponsored by McConey Setup Shop. McConey Setup Shop has seen plenty of growth throughout 2020. And as well, with week 13 currently underway, they're currently offering free street stock setups on their website. To find out more and to get racing today in a McConey Setup Shop machine, go to McConeySetupShop.com. Drivers have wrapped up qualifying, and your Fort Worth Screen Printing Pole Award winner for the McConey Setup Shop No Boot for You 100 is Brandon Hawkin with 3 more bonus points and $5 to his credit. It's Brandon Hawkin with a 110.950 in qualifying. He'll lead him to the green flag with Jacob Fisher next to him on his left side. In the Space Station Gaming Machine, Scott Heckert starts in third position tonight with a 1:11.4, few 100s, quicker than Layden Sabile. Will Rogers rounds out the top 5, while Colin Fern will start in 6th position tonight, looking to try and come away with an air-strong finish after strategy. Here we went his direction for a checker flag last week. Nate Stewart starts in 7th tonight with Nicholas Sanchez in 8th position, Brad Perez in 9th, and Ramen rounding out your top 10, Blake.
And starting in 11th, as you mentioned, will be Eric Pruitt, just outside scoring stage points. Bailey Curry will start in the 12th position. Ryan Vargas will roll off from 13th in the Flex Seal Chevrolet. 14th will go to Arnold Columbia. 15th starter goes to Jacob Armstrong. 16th is Devin Mystic. 17th will go to Dylan Poe. 18th is Roger Diebold. 19th is John Garrett. 20th on the grid, 114.902, went to Sawyer Ott. And then, of course, Elaine Hughes. She was the final driver to pull a time in qualifying. She'll start in 21st. 22nd goes to Matt Cherry. And 23rd, I believe, is race control in Lee Overton. So that's your 22, I believe, Carfield expected to take the green flag tonight.
I believe Cherry and Overton may not be at the racetrack, though, which may shuffle back to 21. We'll have to wait and see as we get ready to go racing full pace lap. Before we take the green, let's take a look once more at weather conditions tonight for Watkins Glen International. We're at 79 degrees Fahrenheit for the green flag tonight. Overcast skies once more. 65 degrees Fahrenheit is the air temp. Winds at 2 miles an hour to the north. 48% humidity. August the 8th, 2020 is the INSIM day, just past 3 p.m., so very cool. Lots of potential grip on the racetrack for tonight as the drivers now roll their way down the front straightaway to the 90. Your keys to victory tonight, Blake, as we get ready to go road course racing from New York State.
Well, I think it's been the name of the game for this entire series is managing the rear grip. Although, again, with the new build, this is a bit of a litmus test. We'll have to see exactly what happens, the type of fall off that we're going to see. Is it going to be as much about saving those front tires, or lockups going to be a little more detrimental? So we'll have to look at pretty much the entire picture of this to see where it'll go. And again, nobody's really raced these records yet in a race setting since that new build. So this is going to be a pretty nice display of what we may see going forward here with this new build. So obviously that, not making mistakes, and like we said, looking for just something that you can try a little bit different to try and chase that 99, because we know he's going to be fast. Won the pole by 0.4 of a second. So obviously getting off cycle may be crucial to try and go into victory lane, and having somebody other than Brandon Hawken visit victory lane in this series.
Once again, as drivers make their way through the cones and through the inner loop, once again, yes, you can do that on the pace lap specifically. That is a time penalty during the race itself. The stages will be laps 10, laps 20, and the checker flag at lap 40. Remember, stage 2 will end with a caution flag at the end of lap 20 after the top 10 crosses the start and finish line. In our words, strategy could be the name of the game once again for the Glen. Expect to be a two-stopper on the gas for tonight's race. From the Glen. Final thoughts, Blake, before the green.
I'm ready to get going. I'm ready for this pace car to pull off. Ready to see what these guys are able to do. And of course, we got to watch turn 1. That's a potential trouble spot with these guys. Again, new build, all of that. Not a whole lot of grip out there, even with the lower track temperature. It'd be something to see.
iRacing pace car is off. Brandon Hawken in control of the field. Green flags out. The McConaughey setup shop. No boot for you 100 is underway. And a great launch for Brandon Hawken. Already single file as it's double file for much of the field off into the 90 to start.
The 99 able to scurry away, but how about Scott Heckert, who's able to get by Jacob Fisher there off of turn 1? A great start for him. Not so good of a start for Jacob Fisher, who falls a little bit back. The work single file up here through the S's as they continue to sort it out. And wow, Brandon Hawken getting away here by about 4 or 5 car lengths already as they head into the bus stop.
And the bus stop was one of the trouble spots in practice for tonight on some of the practice starts, as Colin Fern a little bit all over the place in front of Nate Stort there, trying to dive right underneath Will Rogers for position. Couldn't make it stick.
Rogers able to make it stick, and Fern right behind him, just so sideways there through the carousel. That Coastal Carolina Chevrolet having a handful here is Nate Stort. He's going to throw it to the inside and try to make his way by Fern. Oh, and they make contact. Fern up and off into the grass.
And Fern able to hold on to it, but loses a couple positions in the process. Move Fern back to 9th as the end of the first lap. Sees Brandon Hawken lead already by 1 second over Scott Heckert. Jacob Fisher cycled to 3rd. The driver lost the most positions was Eric Prewitt with Sawyer Ott up 3 positions and 17th to start off. So very clean start compared to some of the chaotic practice starts just 30 minutes ago for some of these competitors.
Yeah, definitely much cleaner than I'm sure they would have anticipated. I see a little bit of rear end damage on Brad Perez's 30 car, but I can't really find anybody's nose that's scratched up. I saw there is just a slight bit of damage on the number 30 car that closely resembles the Miata that he runs in real life, but I just haven't. I was trying to look through and kind of look at the noses of these cars as they roll on by to see if anybody kind of had a little crinkle there, but I have not seen one yet. So Perez a little bit of rear end damage, but otherwise it seemed everybody kind of escaped pretty clean there through that first set of laps.
Already coming to the end of lap 2, and the laps expect to be very quick, about 10-15 minutes or so in total time when you add up all the lap times expected for this first stage alone. The fastest lap so far set by Brandon Hawken, a 1:11.2. Keep in mind that the fastest driver for fastest lap come away with the Overton Speed Shop Fastest Lap Award later on this evening with 3 points and $5 to the credit. The Overton Speed Shop is a team which creates official and custom setups from Cody Setup Shop, and also assists with the setup process for this series. Lots of work was put into tonight to prepare for this race, as Scott Heckert already nearly 2 seconds behind Brandon Hawken and 2.5 laps to the inner loop.
Well, Heckert again helped by that great start that he had, and this is where Heckert, you can't get too caught up in wanting to chase down Hawken. Of course, we know how fast Hawken has been. But this is when you kind of have to settle in and run your race. You're not going to be helped by trying to push a little bit harder, perhaps make a mistake, slide around. Obviously, you just want to keep pace with him right now. Does a nice job here. It was about a 1.5 seconds off of Hawken that last time by. We'll see what it is here as they work off the final corner and towards turn 1. We'll see what it is at the stripe and see if Hawken, how much he may be pulling away. It's about a 0.2 difference or so for Heckert there that he loses to Hawken. But for the driver at 34, you just got to run your race. You got to be smooth. You don't want to push too hard and perhaps make a mistake.
Jacob Fisher still in third, right on behind him as well if anything was to happen, and still Sabile still in P4 at the moment. Once the drivers trying to snake their way up the hillside. Still the closest battle train is right around where, or was, around where Bradley Curry along with Rahman are at the moment, because Arnold Columbia has been gaining some positions up 2 spots already. He's also been really confident on the exit of the bus stop today. Nearly hits the back end of Curry's car.
Yeah, Columbia getting in hot there in the bus stop. He's made up a lot of ground entering that corner these last few times. And this is where, especially here in this midfield battle, it's going to be so interesting to see how these drivers handle the carousel. You saw he steps out the back end just a little bit. He's going to lose all that time here as they work into the final 2 sets of corners. This is where Columbia can make up some time as Perez in front of them nearly off the racetrack. But this is a pretty nice battle here. A couple of cars, about 4 from Brad Perez all the way back to Arnold Columbia, all running in a single file line. And again, this is eventually going to be a battle for stage points. And even behind him, you see Eric Pruitt. He's going to try and go on by Ryan Vargas on the inside.
And Vargas, a bit of a slide. Oh, and a huge contact. Big slide from the 59 sends Vargas way up to the outside of the line. And Vargas still holds on as here comes Jacob Armstrong as a result of that. That was a little bit squirrely, to say the very least, under the brakes.
Oh, it was, and that is just the loss of grip that these drivers have. That was a wheel hop personified there from Eric Pruitt, who just...
in trouble in the inner loop as Leighton Sabile jumps through the grass to the bus stop. Was fighting with Will Rogers side by side for position. He ended up making a huge mistake to the bus stop and cut the full corner before launching up into the sky.
Just chaos here ensuing here at Watkins Glen in the opening laps. We mentioned a couple drivers. We're already starting to see a lot of drivers handling a very slick condition there with their race cars, and this is just telling me more and more that tire conservation, throttle control are going to be the keys to succeeding in this race. And we'll see here hard on the binders into 1. Nate Stewart, we've seen him aggressive. You see Rahman also off the racetrack there as they work on the front stretch.
That was Arnold Columbia who hit him in the door after he missed the brakes going into the final corner. There's already multiple apologies over the radio as Columbia up to 11th, although using the whole left side of that race car with some of the past couple moves. As a result, as we take a look at the battle going on with Rogers and company still, Rogers now trying to close in on his teammate Jacob Fisher.
Trying to do all he can to catch his fellow space station gaming machine, and Rogers was fighting loose in practices we chronicled. It'll be interesting to see here if he is able to kind of keep the throttle down and keep it under control here as we work a couple laps into this race, couple laps into this fuel run. But right now, doing a nice job, even runs Fisher down a little bit there. It seems like he's starting to reel him in just a little bit. Again, this is battle for third. Fisher has control of it now, but Rogers doing a solid job. And, of course, don't forget about Sabile. He had a bit of an issue, but he started to chase him back down as well.
Yeah, he's actually been really impressive to me here because I've seen him a lot, especially in the iRacing service lately, where he's been running everything fixed from cup cars to trucks to Xfinity machines. He's been running a lot, to say the very least, ever since the NASCAR campaigns have come to a close, and he's been getting better and better. I've been impressed with how he's driven on this road course, too. He's among your fastest drivers on the racetrack still at the moment. In fact, he's among the top 4 in that regard.
And isn't that what is great about this service is being able to stay sharp in the off season? But he's going to take a spill off. You see Sawyer Ott is going to come down pit road. Will Rogers and Sabile both ran through the grass there through the bus stop. And Sabile, he is very, very sideways off the carousel. So that's one thing that we've seen in previous tire builds was if you get those rear tires heated up or kind of have one incident where you light them up and nearly spin out, it's going to cost you a lot of time the rest of the run because you just can't ever get the heat out of those tires. Perhaps that's what the number 4 is experiencing right now because he was just very loose off the carousel.
We're still a couple laps away from the end of the first stage and about 7 laps or so away from the estimated fuel mark, the 50% fuel limit in this series. And getting to that discussion on the tires, for those who are new to iRacing, essentially, with the tire model, if you slide the tires, you have essentially only a couple laps at the very most to cool back down the tire. If you overheat that said tire, you lose the said grip in the tire for the rest of the run. Say you put in too much wheel or too much throttle or too quick on the throttle, it can fry the right front tire to as hot as 350 degrees in some green flag runs on some of the ovals.
Yeah, that is the case, and that that's the one thing that these drivers are trying to avoid doing. Obviously, is and obviously it's something you don't want to do in real life either. You want to take care of that race car and kind of maintain that pace to be able to be smooth and go fast without wearing those tires too significantly. And I think again, perfect example on your screen right there, Brandon Hawken, whose lead I believe at the stripe this time may already get to 4 seconds about 8 laps into this thing as he just continues to show the way here. Scott Heckert crossed the line, about a 1/10 of a second difference, but still in Hawkins' favor.
2 laps to go as you see lap traffic. That's Lane Hughes letting drivers go. Lane Hughes, of course, one of the drivers who competes against Brad Perez in real life as well. As some drivers trying some different things, Arnold Columbia coming in right before the end of the first stage. Remember, they do have the faster pair available. We've seen Sawyer Ott also having to come in a couple times and is still in the pit lane. That was after a crash on his own in the bus stop a few laps ago, led to the faster pair, has since had to come down a second time for more than 2 minutes.
And this will be interesting to see with the fall off here in these tires, how quickly it will react. You mentioned the buildup in these tires and whatnot. Brandon Hawken ran a 110.95 in qualifying. Obviously, he's trying to get everything out of the car.
In trouble. Elaine Hughes has crashed in the outer loop right on the exit of the bus stop. And this may be tricky as she's trying to find a way to get going without coming across that track. Near contact from Dylan Poe in one of the Kentucky racing machines, but everyone else getting by cleanly. That could have been disastrous.
No, it could have, and that's one of the toughest spots to spin here at this racetrack is right out of the bus stop because, like you said, you either go forward into a tire barrier or you back up right into traffic. There's just really no right way to go about it, and Hughes was struggling already. She had been lapped just about a lap ago by Brandon Hawken and company, and just obviously doing all she can to try to hang on. Does have that fast repair in her back pocket, though, so can get that Chevrolet all fixed up.
Robin has also come in on the final lap of the first stage of the McConey Setup Shop. No boot for you 100 in the ring around the Roadies, presented by Fort Worth Screen Printing. Again, the series presented by Fort Worth Screen Printing. For all of your retail and contract screen printing needs, visit fwscreen.com. The 44 into the pit lane. Brandon Hawken may lap him as he comes across, this time by final corner. He leads by more than 5 seconds already over Scott Heckert. Add more points to Hawkins' total, 10 more for the 99 on the campaign, in addition to the 3 for the pole award. Scott Heckert by a sizable margin in second, while Jacob Fisher in third as Hawkins celebrates yet another stage victory. The closer battles are around Sabile, who comes home fourth, Will Rogers, Nicholas Sanchez, Nate Stewart, Colin Fern, Brad Perez, and Bailey Curry all score points as side-by-side Nate Stewart off the racetrack.
And Stewart able to collect it back up as he and Colin Fern went at it in turn 1. And again, that was a battle. Remember on lap 1, I believe, there was a little bit of contact made there with Stewart and Fern. So Colin Fern able to get by Stewart, and perhaps I think that's one of those cases. One, you're just on the outside, you overrun the corner, right? You just make a little bit of a mistake. But I think Stewart was going to give him all the room because, I think the kind of disagreement there with Colin Fern, he wanted to make sure there was not any contact there getting into turn one.
Bit more traffic right now for some of these cars. Of note, Robin did not use the faster pair. Columbia is currently the first driver on the pit stop driver usages. Brandon Hawkin, the leader, is also in this time. Scott Heckert coming in to match. This is only on lap 11 coming to lap 12. Jacob Fisher also coming in. This is about 4 laps shorter than what drivers were expecting prior to tonight.
Well, you see pretty much everybody coming down pit road except for Colin Fern, driver of the 68 car, doing a lot of what he saw last week, trying to stay out and run just a little bit different. And again, this is what we were saying about potentially just trying something different than the race leader. We see Brad Perez is also elected to stay out as well, but Fern going to try a little bit of sleight of hand here to see if he can stay out a little further, try to gain some tires, perhaps do something a little bit later. Again, I love the approach that Fern has had in this series for somebody who, again, came home in the stages. He crossed and got a couple of stage points there. He finished 8th in stage 1, but he nearly won the race last week because of strategy when he wasn't necessarily running up in the top 2 or 3 on pace. So we'll see what Fern continues to do here, if he's going to stay out here a little bit longer or not. But nevertheless, I love his approach.
Trouble, Will Rogers, he's had to take a tow from 7th position. He crashed in a battle with Leighton Sabile coming out of the pit lane in the S's and went nose first into the wall. As a result, he's now demolished. Let's take a look at the STN replay to talk through this one, as this is going to have ramification for the championship standings. Take a look.
And unfortunately for Rogers, you can use that fast repair. You're not going to lose a whole lot of time, but unfortunately, you got to take the tow back to pit road. It is not going to go well. You see, obviously, contact there with Sabile in a section that is difficult to run side by side here. And then you could just see Rogers kind of gets tied in with the arm code barrier through the second S's in turn 3. So that is not a good sight to see for Will Rogers, who, again, because of that tow, it's going to take several minutes for his car to reset. He's going to lose a couple laps here on pit road.
And to add insult to injury, remember, Leighton subbed for Rogers last week. So that kind of adds another wrinkle to all of that. So that trouble, unfortunate for one of the top drivers in the series and one of the top road course runners in the Arc and Menard series in the East and West the past couple years. Colin Fern yet to pit still, coming up to 13 laps. Him, Roger Diebold, along with Dylan Poe, among the drivers yet to pit so far. Fern going to the end of the fuel tank, it seems here. He's got only a 13-second or so buffer over Brandon Hawkin at the moment.
It'll be interesting to see how long that Colin Fern can keep this pace up. Running about 1:14 right now. Brandon Hawkin probably going to be, I would imagine, in about the 1 minute 11 second bracket. And there you see up a 1:11.399 for Hawkin that time. So he's running him down about 3 seconds a lap. But we've seen in terms of the fall off that it's pretty significant through about the first 10 laps or so. And then it kind of stabilizes after a little bit. It's not near as much as I think as it was in the past. For example, Colin Fern, just 5 laps ago, or lap number 9, he ran a 1:14.668. He just ran a 1:14.674 on lap 13. So it kind of stabilizes out a little bit. This could work in Fern's favor. Again, if he has enough fuel to make it to the end of stage 2, it may not be a stage-winning move per se, but again, it could be something where instead of finishing about 8th, where he finished in stage 1, this could be something that nets him a couple points in stage 2, as now he's going to come on to pit road.
Yeah, I was going to say that's the end of the fuel tank there to the end of lap 14, the start of lap 15. So this puts him in line for a one-stopper from here to the end. So in other words, he can stay out under the caution flag in theory, and then hit with about 12 or 11 to go-ish, give or take. So it's going to be really interesting how it works out for Fern, as he's hoping that taking less stops on the gas possibly may come into play for a lot of these air drivers. It seems, Blake, they may be thinking about pitting for the tires and the fuel for a second time and then one more time during the final stage at this rate.
Well, and you also have to think that if you're going to go this far, again, Fern was losing a couple of seconds a lap staying out right there. So why would you do that? Well, there's a couple reasons why. Perhaps maybe he's thinking, hey, at the end of this stage, I'll just take 2 tires, and now that I have fresher lefts or fresher rights, depending on what they are, perhaps that's a way to gain time or gain a little bit of track position. But Fern, oh man, how did he save that car? He was sliding through the S's off the grass. And man, I'm shocked because typically, Justin, when you're on a track with pretty significant tire wear, you get those fresh tires. It's usually the greatest feeling in the world. You've been sitting out there sliding on old tires, suffering out there. You get and put 4 fresh Goodyear Eagles on. It's usually one of the better feelings in racing when you get out there and all of a sudden you realize, man, there is all this grip on the racetrack. But I'll tell you what, Fern about met his end through the S's there. He did a heck of a job to not nose it into the Armco barrier.
Yeah, the cold tires, definitely not friendly, let's put it that way. There's a reason they're called cold tires, because they aren't up to the optimal tire temps yet. As Fern, he let go by Bailey Curry this time, Curry braking to the inside. Of note, Curry's fellow paint scheme mate had stretched it on the gas to 15 laps. John Garrett will come in this time by. No, he'll go an extra lap too. John Garrett is the only driver yet to pit in the field.
And I tell you what, I think what Garrett could do here, or perhaps what I was even thinking that Colin Fern may do, was you could basically take these last couple of laps and, like you said, if Fern were going to stay out here at this second stage break, you were thinking of maybe that you could just basically park the bus these last couple of laps. You're going to get that stage caution. You're not going to go a lap down. If you were looking for some type of way to save time on pit road after the stage 2 yellow, or you were going to maybe try to stay out on old tires, just park the bus here, save those tires as absolutely much as possible without being lapped by Brandon Hawken. And at the end of it, you're going to be all caught up with everybody else. So I've seen that happen a couple of times where drivers will try some tire strategy and basically go as slow as possible to try and save those tires as much as they can. But I don't believe that's the case here for Garrett, though. But he may just do it here if he continues to stay out. He'll probably come down pit road here in about a lap or so. Actually, he looked like he was about to come down, but I think he's just going to let the 17 car by here into turn 1.
I'm surprised he stretched this one. He might have to come down this time because this is going to be tight. Even on a full tank, this would be tight to try and stretch it towards a one-stop. In many cases, official races have seen distances where you have to buy a couple laps. Either do something called IMSA braking, where you brake early and let and coast, or try and save, looking like he's trying to make sure he doesn't run out of gas here, as they are already starting lap 18. This is, mind you, 51 seconds behind your race leader at the moment, Brandon Hawken. And there is that stage caution after the top 10 crosses the line at the end of lap 20. If he has to come down and pit, it likely cycles him to potentially off the lead lap at minimum.
Well, I was about to say, you have to kind of watch your mirror in Garrett's case, where he hasn't come down pit road and he only sports about a 25-second lead over Brandon Hawken at the moment. So if you're going to try this thing where you have fresh tires at the end of the stage, you don't want to go a lap down doing it. So yeah, Garrett's going to make his way on the pit road this time, and perhaps this is where we'll see if he's able to make up all that time. It'll be close. Hawken is going to come around and lap him. There's no question about that. But can Garrett, on the fresher tires, unlap himself and then maybe try to catch some
Leighton Sabile crashing in the bus stop. This was in the battle for 4th position with Nate Stewart and Nicholas Sanchez. He had been holding on very aggressively at times, but Nate Stewart, with a dive towards the bottom, locked up the brakes here, Blake. That caused him to spin around into that bus stop. We'll take a look at it on the STN replay. And the Do It For Dale machine ends up going up to 4th, not the way he wanted it to be, though, I don't think.
No, I don't think so, and I think that's the case. I don't know if Sabile knew that they were side by side, or if they were even side by side entering that bus stop right there. But of course, a little bit of disagreement over real estate right there between Nate Stewart and Leighton Sabile, as Sabile spins off the nose of the 16 Toyota, and it doesn't look like he's too hurt by that. Didn't really hit anything, but certainly going to lose a lot of time here.
Yeah, Alton P9 on the board, 4 seconds behind the next position. This is coming, mind you, towards the white flag in the second stage this upcoming time by. So, chance to regroup with that caution coming up, and that's going to be one of the big kickers here too, is a chance for drivers to change things up. Final lap coming up this time by for Brandon Hawkin in the stage. Scott Hecker, 10.4 seconds behind Hawkin. Fisher is in third. Stewart and Sanchez, the current top 5 on the final lap of the stage.
And he's got a pretty significant lead right here, so all he has to do is really just kind of coast around here and mind his P's and Q's and the S's here. It doesn't look like he has too much traffic in front of him. Dylan Poe, obviously, quite a ways in front of him, running in the 17th position, but a nice little battle here going on for about 4th in this stage points. And there you see the 5. It looks like, yeah, Roger had a bit of issue there through the bus stop.
Yeah, okay, and Edits Machine was your, at the time, Monstop Shop Vibe Checker Award driver, who was the most positions gained so far. Ready to make your look pop? Check out MonstopShop.com for unique apparel such as the Vibe Check collection. Unfortunately, his car checked off the track as Brandon Hawkin looks to check another box. Another stage victory. 20 laps down, 20 to go this time as Brandon Hawkin, another 10 points to his credit, wins stage 2.
And Hawkin doing as he has done all series long, dominating here in the opening couple of stages. He'll win stage 1, he'll win stage 2. Heckert and Fisher race for second. Oh, big trouble here in the battle for 4th as Sanchez moves Nate Stewart out of the way, and that is going to get him 4th, but also probably going to make the driver in that 16 not very happy. You see side by side behind them as Colin Fern able to just get around Brad Perez coming to the end of stage 2.
And Scott Heckert, as you mentioned, came to the pit lane. So that may jump him up ahead of everybody else as a result here. The rest of the field yet to cross the line. The last of the cars will be Eric Prewitt, who will be in that category for stage points, I believe. Yes, indeed. That is the end of stage 2 and a crazy final couple laps of the stage. Ends up regrouping the field as you see the points and how they stack up now. That's Nicholas Sanchez, who scored in P4. Nate Stewart in 5th on the points. Then you had that battle with Fernand Perez. Overall, Scott Heckert finishes 3rd on the stage in contact and a spin under caution.
Oh. And Sanchez gets turned here by Nate Stewart. I got to say, Justin, that looked like a lot of intent behind that one, but interesting there with the contact. Obviously, Stewart didn't take too kindly to that contact they had just before the end of the stage. So, unfortunately for Sanchez, he gets turned under caution. We'll have to see what race control has to say about that, but so, some drama and implications here under caution coming to the end of stage 2.
And several drivers trying to get to the pace car. And here's the interesting thing here with all this. Remember that distance that we seen from the 66 John Garrett on fuel where he made it about, what was it, 18 laps? There's a chance some drivers can stretch at that exact total if they pit this time by with the pit lane open.
And that is the case. I think we're going to see a bit of a difference of strategy here, and it's going to be kind of what Colin Fern did last week. Are you going to split this last run in half, or are you going to try to go the distance and just go on one stop? I really don't think you could go wrong with either one here because, I mean, obviously having fresh tires we've seen makes a huge difference. If you're like Brandon Hawkin and you're going to have a huge lead anyway, you're not really losing a whole lot coming down pit road and getting fresh tires. But for some drivers that, you know, not only want to potentially have a chance to win up here in the top 5, but even some drivers who may be running about 9th or 10th or so that want to move up a couple of spots. You know, this is going to be interesting to see what strategy people elect to choose.
Indeed. So slump cars mixed in here as Nicolas Sanchez is still coming up through these drivers in what has been an entertaining race so far in this one. Well, to see who comes down the pit lane, as several drivers are still trying to sort out the positions. Again, several in position to try and come in. Yes, that means John Garrett likely will be among the drivers looking towards the wave or the lucky dog spots. Everyone looking like they're coming in.
Yeah, looking like everybody's going to make their trip down pit road this time. Again, I really don't imagine that you're going to see a lot of drivers who elect to stay out here. There's just no track position to be gained. We've seen how much tires matter. But again, for a lot of these drivers, this is going to be the case. Is this their final pit stop, or are they going to have to are they going to have to come down a second time? Now, obviously, Scott Heckert, he has stayed out, because obviously he came down pit road, short pit everybody, and again, did exactly what he did last week. Finished the stage under caution, which of course still counts, and then basically just flips the track position, so he'll have a little bit of a lead over Brandon Hawken, who had an 18-second pit stop. Look at how many spots he lost off of pit road.
I was about to say, several drivers had black flags and overran their pit boxes, both at the same time. Sanchez overran his pit box, had potential black flags. Bailey Curry overran his pit box, had potential black flags. Sanchez, as mentioned, overran. Everybody struggled, it seemed, on that entry. Devin Mistek, 17.7 seconds. A chaotic caution flag window, to say the very least. As everyone tries to sort themselves out, let's take a very quick side-by-side. Once again, you're watching Ring Around the Roadies, presented by Fort Worth Screen Printing, live on STN Racing. Back live on STN Racing, as my goodness, what a crazy pit stop sequence here from Watkins, Glen International. Justin Prince alongside Blake McCann with Zach Johnson in the director's seat. And let's reset, because this is going to be an interesting sequence coming to this green flag. Among the drivers who have stayed out here are Colin Fern, Jacob Armstrong, Nicholas Sanchez, Devin Mistak, Dylan Paul, Eric Prewitt, Alon. That's it. Why did I say stay out? Because as you've seen, several competitors topped off, in part because that number we mentioned with John Garrett's fuel. So Scott Heckert, Brandon Hawken, who did not put in fuel initially in the car, Nate Stewart, Arnold Columbia, and several others all topped off under the yellow flag. Right now, in total, there are 19 cars in the lead lap. Will Rogers is the last of those drivers, but he is 3/4 of a racetrack behind the circuit, along with John Garrett. There is a chance he doesn't catch the field at the time of this green flag. In other words, it was a busy caution flag for the McConaughey Setup Shop. No boot for you, 100, as we're ready to go back racing. Who will make it on the fuel? It's no fuel mileage race, everybody. Colin Fern to the green.
Well, and Scott Heckert, a massive jump. And again, this was a single file restart. They're looking 4 wide. They're looking 5 for a moment as Hawkins trying to get there. Oh, and Heckert got into the back of Sanchez. Somehow they hang on to it. No wrecks so far through turn 1, but an unbelievable jump by Scott Heckert on that restart.
And a good launch for Colin Fern on top of that as well. When it comes to Heckert, already up to 3rd spot, looking to take away 2nd from Nicolas Sanchez, who has that damage from that spin, from that contact we've seen with Nate Stewart under caution. Here comes Hawkins, though, trying to take advantage of Sanchez, tries to hold off 2 lanes at once.
And Sanchez doing the work of Colin Fern right now, who runs up in the lead, as Heckert trying his best to try and make a run at Sanchez here for the 2nd spot. Oh, contact there with Brandon Hawkins. And oh boy, we'll have to see what happens here. Hawkins hard on the brakes. He's going to look for it. He makes contact. The 07 spins around. He's off the racetrack, and Hawkins able to escape through after contact there with Scott Heckert. Oh, and a big spin here. Devin Mustat gets turned around.
The 17 machine to 17th spot now as a result of that spin. No caution after a chaotic first lap off the restart. And as a result, Fern has more than 2 seconds on the field. Hawkins up to 2nd from all that. And tempers have to be flaring after that. Keep in mind as well, you have Arnold Columbia fighting for 5th, and you have several different fuel strategies in the mix where if it goes green to the end, half the field may have to come down for a splash and go.
Well, and that's what this tells me, Justin, is obviously nobody would have sacrificed the track position to come down pit road and top off if they didn't think they could go all the way to the end. You just wouldn't even try that if you were already going to come down pit road. So a majority of this field, I'm not sure if Colin Fern's still going to be able to try it, but almost every driver is going to try to make it to the end on fuel. And of course, we were talking about the split up between maybe coming down and doing a stop, and whether overall that would be faster with just the amount of time you lose on old tires. But it seems like everybody's kind of setting their bed about what they want to do. And right now it looks like everybody trying to make it to the end. And I think you see that for the most part in the fact that Hawkins is not exactly running down Colin Fern right now. Of course, Fern out front in clean air was able to escape from everybody. But I'd have to imagine that Hawkins just has a little bit better pace than that driver up there. But I guess they're just trying to save a little bit of fuel, which, you know, not easy to do on a road course. Oh, Fern had to chase that car out of the grass.
Yeah, and he set his fastest time last time by. The gap is now, as a result of that bobble, only about 1.7 seconds on the interval, back up to 1.8 seconds. So Hawkins slowly chipping into the gap, along with Leighton Sabile in that train behind. Nate Stewart is also currently up to 5th now after a pass last time with Jacob Fisher. Brad Perez also in the group. And as you see from the onboard, Hawkins, his eyes set forward on the Coastal Carolina University machine of Colin Fern, who is loose in the corner.
I tell you what, Fern is hanging on for dear life right now at the front of the field, and it's not because he's not necessarily on the fresh tires. Came down lap 22. The rest of the field came down on lap 23, so not necessarily anything where he would just not have the speed. As Nate Stewart getting into turn 1, oh boy, a big slide out of the rear of his car. That's going to allow Jacob Fisher to get side by side with Stewart, and it looks like Fisher's going to go on by here in the S's.
U.S. Air Force sponsored machine dropping back to 6th spot now as a result of that slide, as now Brad Perez, who was trying to make a lunge last time for some positions, looking to try and get a good burst of speed. For Brad Perez, that caution flag and regrouping, I think, really helped him among the drivers the most, because he is now looking a bit more confident on his braking marks.
Yeah, I think you're right. Perez has really reeled himself in, and I think, that real life experience coming to his benefit right now. Hasn't pushed too hard and has just slowly but surely worked his way up through the field, making up a couple of positions and, riding solidly right now in seventh. Doesn't have too much traffic to worry about behind him. And again, I just have to think that there's a lot of these drivers who are taking it a little bit easy, trying to save a little bit of fuel, because again, nobody would have topped off if they weren't going to be close on gas. So you have to think a lot of these guys maybe holding back just a little bit, maybe lifting a little early for these corners, trying to use as little fuel as possible.
12 laps to go from the Glen as Hawkins is now within a second or so of Colin Fern. 4/10 quicker last time, and Fern is really struggling in the S's especially. You mentioned it with the grass a lap ago. That time he nearly swung into the Armco barrier. Those rear tires just not looking happy.
Certainly not. But again, we know the fight that Colin Fern will put on, because he made it about as difficult as possible for Hawkins to make his way by at Road America. And I think you're going to see the same thing here. So it's going to be one thing to catch Colin Fern, but he is going to make that entire car as wide as an offensive line for the Chanticleers. He's going to try to make it very, very difficult for Brandon Hawkins to try to make his way by.
This will be one of the biggest wins in Fern's iRacing career, a long-time racer in the service. Remember, racing as far back as 2014, 2015. He's been on for that long. At the time, he was doing PR for Brandon Brown. Now he's the technical director for Brandon Built Motorsports. Now looking to hold on with the big lunge from Hawkins. A 1:12.7 last time for Hawkins, a 1:13.3 from Colin Fern. It's now within 7/10.
7/10 of a second, and man, I'm wondering right now if, again, everybody topped off. Fern is running out here on a bit of a different strategy. Again, Fern was running in about the 8th position. He finished stage 1 in 8th. Finished stage 2 right there. He's able to make a move around Perez on the outside. As, man, these guys are really using up the curbs here in the bus stop. I'm just interested to see, because everybody else came and topped off. You got to think maybe they gain about maybe 2/10 extra of a gallon of fuel or something of that nature. How Fern, who is driving his heart out right now, if he's going to have enough fuel to make it to the end, he could back up and probably save a lot, but obviously he's not going to do that until perhaps he gives up the race lead.
10 to go now. This time. And this is going to be one of the best passing opportunities. Keep in mind for Hawkins to make a lunge in about a lap or so. Within 3 car lengths, and you can see just a little bit more distance. Hawkins seems to get from the same braking point, a little bit more speed carried in. Fern seems to just carry a little bit more pressure on the brakes right now, with the pressure from behind.
Yeah, and again, I imagine you're going to see Fern start to take those defensive lines. As we're going to see it here through the bus stop. What will Hawkins do? We saw Hawkins, I mean, as hard as Fern raced him, Brandon was incredibly patient during that battle at Road America. And you see right here, carrying speed through the bus stop. We know Fern's going to go to the bottom and make it hard for Hawkins to try and pass. We know Hawkins going to try to get by clean. And Fern is going to give him a run for his money. As you see Fern sliding off the corner, where will he go? Here comes Hawkins, who will have the outside here in this left-hander. So we'll see what Fern's able to do to try to hold him off.
Fern trying to play the defensive line as Hawkins now with the squeeze. Brandon Hawkins for the race lead. Now has the preferred line for the final corner. Bigger set for Fern. He slides up towards the tires. 9 to go. This time by as Hawkins loses speed. He still looks to the right side through the 90. Bigger run through Colin Fern as he gets back single file as he resets.
I got to say, as soon as I saw Hawkins have the preferred line there, getting into that final corner, I thought Fern was a goner. What an incredible job right there to work that outside lane and hold Hawkins at bay, if even for a little bit, because really, you don't have another passing opportunity until you get off the carousel here, because Fern can go low. He can defend through the bus stop. Hard to get beneath Fern into the carousel, so Fern kind of staving off a run here from Hawkins for another lap, but that was incredible to hold him off on the high side like he did.
Nicholas Sanchez, not able to make it on the gas, has come into pit. He only made it 9 laps on his fuel. He was in the back half of the field. Will Colin Fern be able to make it on the distance? Fern, the only driver inside the top 10 who did not top off with the 1 to go signal under the caution flag. 8 to go as Hawkins now tries to take away the outside can.
And here comes Brandon Hawkins looking to try to make a run, but just not able to make it work right now. Just an unbelievable job Fern is doing of holding him off. And you mentioned this is about the time where we would see drivers split that pit strategy if they weren't going to try to make it to the end. We're about 9 laps into this run. So this is about that time where you would see drivers start to come down pit road if they were going to implement kind of the stop before the end here.
Better run coming out of the S's, though, this time for Hawkins. Fern now getting close on fuel on the radio. Here comes Hawkins to the inner loop. Fern breaks him. Fern back clear. Hawkins now looks to cross him up. Can't get the run going into the outer loop.
Hawkins does an incredible job here. Fern, he slides up really high through the carousel, but if Fern can hang on, he's going to have the preferred line here, working into the left-hander. They're side by side, dead even. Can Fern clear him off, or will we see kind of a repeat of what we saw a couple of laps ago? Oh, Hawkins, what a great drive. I think he's got it here.
Fern backs up. Hawkins looks to try and pull away. One more lunge from Fern with 7 to go. Will Fern try and respond up the inside? 2/10 less time by. Fern under the braking zone. Cannot get towards the bumper with 7 to go. Hawkins now up to the race lead once more.
And see, this is where perhaps we may see Brandon Hawkins set sail here at Watkins Glen. He takes the lead, and again, this may not be a race-winning call for Colin Fern, but at the very least, it's going to improve him several positions from where he was running at the back half of the top 10 if he can make it on fuel again. So now Fern, he loses the race lead. He gave Hawkins everything he has. Does that Coastal Carolina Chevrolet have enough fuel to make it to the end? He's got about 3.5 seconds of a buffer now in a battle that is side by side between Heckert and Jacob Fisher as they work through the carousel. So he's got a little bit of time to save some fuel if he needs to, but of course Sabile is right behind those guys. This is a wonderful battle for third.
Heckert making a pass to the bus stop last time. Fisher over the back end. Sabile now waiting to see what happens. Fisher a little bit quicker now, though, on the burst as he cuts to the right side. Remember, Heckert is on a bit older tires compared to the rest of these cars trying to park the bus. Better run heading off to the 90. 6 to go this time. And the Space Station gaming machine looks to launch off to the sky. Heckert, though, launches back up to third.
And he's able to hold steady right there. And of course, of note, I think one thing that we may see here, we mentioned some of the antics that were going on under caution. Nicholas Sanchez came off of pit road, waited for about a second, and he has fresh tires, and he's caught up to the back of Nate Stewart, who, if you can remember, spun him under caution. So Sanchez here on fresh tires, directly behind Nate Stewart as they're battling in front of him, getting around Elaine Hughes. This is going to cause a huge stack up here in the bus stop. And, oh, man, they're all able to escape. But, oh, man, here comes Sanchez. Oh, and he'll take out the 16. Or what a save there by Nate Stewart. But Sanchez definitely has one thing on his mind.
Yes, and this is going to be dangerous. Stewart now backing up. Sanchez now trying to go side by side. And now Sanchez drives on by. Yes.
Wow. So Sanchez, obviously, he remembered he wasn't very happy, so he gave Stewart a shove. Didn't spin him out, but definitely lit up the rear tires there for Stewart. So I got to say, Sanchez, I guess, gets his revenge. As again, Sanchez running 19th now, a lap down, but he took tires. He waited at the end of pit road to let Stewart on by as Sabile spins in front of them.
And he goes off the racetrack, off to the runoff area, and moves Sabile back to 7th spot. And what a bad turn of events for Sabile. Was a top 4 car much of the night. For the past 20 laps or so, it's fallen apart for Sabile in that 4 machine.
And Stabile he has had speed, but he has made a couple of mistakes. You see another one right there. They are still battling up here for third between Heckert and Jacob Fisher. These two just cannot separate themselves from each other. And oh man, Fisher sticks his nose in there and they nearly touch in the carousel. This has been some incredible racing here.
And remember what we just seen with Nicolas Sanchez? Well, the antics are continuing with 4 to go, and this could get ugly. Sanchez let by Nate Stewart a second time and is now trying to cut up the right side and continue to play games. What is he doing at this point? This will hold it up a little bit more. Stabile and Columbia are still 2 seconds back of all this.
Yeah, I think at this point, Sanchez, again, he has the fresher tires, so he can kind of afford to make these mistakes or slide around a little bit, and he's still going to be able to chase down Stewart. But, man, I can't take my eyes off this battle. We'll chronicle these two in a moment if they get close to each other once again. But, man, Heckert and Fisher just doing a great job here. They got a little bit of lap traffic in front of them, but they have not separated by much here. And Heckert, oh, he gets a little wide there through the bus stop. Here comes Fisher, who may look low in the carousel, and they nearly touch.
Just couldn't get to the right side of him for the elder loop that time. And for Fisher, one of the most improved drivers throughout the campaign, he has shown better and
he
better.
turned him. Oh, Nate Stewart into the Armco barrier, and he finally gets sent fully around. Sanchez finally disposes of Nate Stewart here in the carousel. And, yeah, there's the end of that.
That's going to be potentially a penalty, let's put it that way. Sanchez, 13 total points on the season. Stewart, among your championship competitors, as we talked about, was in a battle for the top 10 without drops entering tonight. That may be looked at, let's put it that way, after all of that. With 3 laps to go, though, it's still Hawkin in the lead now by 5 seconds. Fern, though, is getting closed in by that battle between Heckert and Fisher, which is side by side. Contact on the S's. Fisher crashes into Heckert. Heckert drops behind. Fisher moves up to third.
And, oh, boy, Fisher and Heckert were side by side, and this allows Brad Perez to now become part of this battle. Fisher and Heckert with a little bit of damage, and we've talked about Brad Perez just slowly minding his own race. Now he's up here. He's in fourth. He's looking for third on Fisher.
You'll have to see how the cars now respond with a bit of damage. Heckert with a ton of it now. Fisher with a little bit of front damage on both the fenders. Perez now looking to become one of your biggest movers in the field, up 5 spots from the start of the race with 2 laps to go and a chance to come away with the podium.
And what can Perez do here to try and run down Fisher again? We'll have to watch here with 2 to go. Can Colin Fern, who's just ahead of this battle, make it to the end on fuel? He was a lap shorter on pit road. Perhaps that 68 car going to be sputtering here across the line. Bailey Curry is on pit road. Appears he may not be able to make it to the end. We'll have to chronicle if a couple other drivers are in a similar spot. But right now, it seems like Fisher able to hold off Perez for third at the moment. Heckert falling back after a little bit of damage, so they've stabilized up here at the front. The question is, can they make it on fuel?
Yeah, that's something with all the craziness that's going to be under the radar a bit. Fern now really backing it down. He might not be able to make it this lap. He is only running 90 miles an hour through the corners now. It's down to just about a second from second and third as a result of that. White flag coming up this time by. Winner coming away with $30 in the line. Will Rogers now hearing is out of fuel. He's now slowed it down as they take the white flag this time by.
Yeah, it appears that he is out, and now, I mean, the only question for Hawkin is going to be, can he make it on fuel? I'd imagine Hawkin, the race sense he has, Perez looks like he may be a bit off the pace, working towards the start-finish line. He's going to barrel it down into 1 here, but this is going to be the question. Are these guys able to make it all the way on fuel?
Hawkin has an 8+ second buffer if need be. Columbia has just passed Stabile as well in the backdrop with the Starley S's. Fern looking to hold on to another strong finish, back-to-back weeks in that regard. A little bit too much out of reach yet for Fisher as he tries to hold on to the fuel. One more complex of corners coming up through the outer loop. This is where he saved fuel a ton last time.
And again, at this point, you can pretty much coast at home if you need to. You may not be fast, but you can get there as Fern starting to slow up a little bit.
Brandon Hawkin will lap Will Rogers and his car out of gas. Checker flag waves. Brandon Hawkin wins once more in the ring around the Roadies. And the McConaughey Setup Shop No Boot for You 100 by 9 seconds as Fern will hold on for second.
Fern able to hold on for second. Fisher brings it home third. Perez is able to march forward to fourth. Scott Heckert, unfortunately, back in fifth. More contact between Nate Stewart and Sanchez, although I think that was more of a, that was just some more contact there in the carousel. Stewart, I think, turned left in frustration, kind of wrecks himself.
And look at that. Sabile ran out of gas coming to the line as well. Blake had even more insult injury. Another 2 spots lost. He finishes 9th because of that.
And
what a crazy final lap.
Yeah, several drivers running out here late in the going. How about Vargas comes home and finishes 7th? Oh, man. I'm surprised we had this many drivers who were able to make it to the end. Nate Stewart, actually, he is sputtering coming to the line, so he's going to finish in 15th, 1 lap, or he's going to be the last car on the lead lap. But perhaps after all that happened between he and Sanchez, that car sputtering trying to make it to the finish line.
What a finish as Stewart will be able to cross the stripe on his own power and become your last driver on the lead lap as Hawkin gets a lot of congratulations from Colin Fern. Or in his words, I believe he's trying to high-five him. What a race. Let's take a look at your unofficial race results as Brandon Hawkin started on the pole, led most of the laps, had the fastest lap yet again, and once more is a winner at Watkins Glen by the interval of 8.8 seconds over Colin Fern. Jacob Fisher rounds out the top 3 positions tonight, as we'll be speaking with those drivers in a few moments. Brad Perez finished in 4th with Scott Heckert in 5th, with Arnold Columbia in 6th. Ryan Vargas finished in 7th tonight, 26 seconds back of the leader. Now Prewitt comes home in 8th, and Sabile comes home in 9th. While Jacob Armstrong rounds out the top 10 tonight, Blake.
11th goes to Roger Diebold. 12th goes to Bailey Curry. 13th was the 44 of Rahman. 14th goes to Dylan Poe. 15th, just making it to the line, was Nate Stewart, the last car on the lead lap. 16th goes to Will Rogers. 17th to John Garrett. 18th was Nicholas Sanchez. 19th to Devin Mustek, and 20th was Elaine Hughes. 21st, Sawyer Ott. 22nd, actually, that was it. 21 cars made the grid and started today. So, that rounds out this field and what ended up being a just crazy stage 3.
Yes, indeed. It was a crazy one, to say the very least, for the McConaughey Setup Shop No Boot for You 100, from the pit stops under the caution to the checker flag. Take a quick step aside. Post-race coverage coming up in just a moment. You're watching STN Racing for coverage of the Ring Around the Roadies, presented by Fort Worth Screen Printing. Welcome back to STN Racing's coverage of the Ring Around the Roadies and the McConaughey Setup Shop No Boot for You 100, Remember, Makoni Setup Shop with Week 13 has free street stock setups available at MakoniSetupShop.com. Once again, be sure to check those out at MakoniSetupShop.com. Justin Prince alongside Blake McCann with Zach Johnson, the director's seat for tonight's action, and what was an exciting one, to say the very least. Blake, this race had it all, to say the very least. It had your dominating performances, it had your crazy pit stop calls, it had your fuel mileage races, and in the end, it's Brandon Hawken who's able to conquer all of those for another checkered flag. The Canadian celebrates once more and now joins us from Victory Lane. Brandon, you've done it again. How does it feel to win once more, this time at the Glen?
Hey guys, yeah, man, feels really good. Man, yeah, it was a really fun battle with Colin again, and yeah, 2 weeks in a row now. That was some really good stuff. So yeah, happy to come home with the W, and at a place like Watkins Glen, I really love that track. So yeah, it's great to come home with the win.
Of course, one of the big questions is everything seemed to go crazy during the second stage to the third stage. Including, from what we heard, you forgot apparently to put in fuel at first.
Yeah, I was in the pits for a few seconds before I realized the fuel wasn't on. So I turned that on, and yeah, luckily it was only a few extra seconds that I had to stay in my box. And I think yeah, I think after we came in, I only ended one spot because I didn't take tires. So yeah, it wasn't too bad. But once the restart came, that was pretty hectic. Yeah, we had yeah, three of us in a really tight battle there, and yeah, things got kind of crazy, but we were able to get through it, and then track down Colin, and yeah, it was a really fun race, especially second stage there, or sorry, third stage.
Yeah, I was going to say, how difficult is it to try and battle someone like Colin Fern, who has a ton of sim racing experience himself as well in the service?
He knows where to put his car for sure. Like, yeah, he makes it tough to get around him. So, yeah, hats off to him. Good clean race from him, and Scott too on that restart. That was a lot of fun, and you know, just like just have a really good time racing with these guys. So, hats off to everybody.
One more race before the final race of the campaign, essentially one more race until the drop itself, and you've been dominating the championship standings, to say the very least. What's kind of now the approach for the final two races in the campaign, because you have the Indianapolis Road Course and the Charlotte Roval to close things out?
Well, definitely have to practice up for the Indianapolis Road Course, because yeah, I think I only know the old layout. I don't know the new one. So, or at least the newer one. But yeah, so I'll have to put a lot of laps in there, get prepared for next week, and but yeah, hopefully we can just keep continuing doing what we're doing. The stage cautions definitely bring a lot of strategy into play, so hopefully we're on the right side of that, and yeah, we'll see what we can do.
Anyone you want to thank for the run tonight?
Well, I'd just like to thank everybody who puts on the series, Monin, Lee, you know, everybody involved, Fort Worth Screen Printing for sponsoring the series, you guys in the broadcast booth behind the scenes, and yeah, just all my competitors, man. It's a lot of fun racing here, and yeah, it's just been a really good time.
Congratulations on another victory. You've had the full sweep essentially so far this season.
Thanks, guys.
Brandon Hawken, another dominating performance tonight, getting a max points night on the campaign. Now, the driver who tried the strategy card for a second straight week to make it Fern versus Hawken a second straight race. It's with Blake McCandless, Colin Fern, second place tonight for Brandon Built Motorsports.
You know, I don't think there's anybody who just makes these races more fun to watch than Colin Fern. Again, running back in about 7th or 8th or so through the first couple of stages. And once again, you pull the strategy card out of here, and it doesn't get you a win, but it gets you a second place effort. Just kind of talk about why you think these calls are working so well for you.
It's just I'm not fast enough to beat Brandon, so I have to try to use a little strategy to try to get some track position and maybe force him into a mistake. So I didn't think I was going to be able to make it on fuel. I was just hoping for a wreck. Obviously, Watkins Glen's a really tight road course compared to a lot of the places we go. So was hoping for a caution and be able to keep that track position, and didn't seem to pan out. But yeah, the whole reason behind it is this: I'm not fast enough.
Well, I can sympathize with that, especially on these road courses. I know we talked earlier in the broadcast that you feel like you don't have something, you just got to kind of get creative. And there's really been nobody who it's worked out better for. We've seen a lot of guys short pit trying to get track position at the end of the stages, but for whatever reason, it seems like whatever you decide to do up there ends up getting you that clean air. How close were you to making it on fuel? Because I know practically everybody came and topped off there coming to the last lap to try to make sure they were good on fuel. Were you having to worry that last couple laps that you were going to hear perhaps that sputter coming to the checkered flag?
No, not really. Well, I was racing Brandon really hard and taking a lot of defensive lines to just try to hold him off. He was way faster through the bus stop and carousel, and I felt like if I could just stay in front of him through those parts, I'd be able to hold him off. But once he got by me, I was about a lap and a half short or so, and just stopped going to second gear, just rolled third gear everywhere, and yeah, I was just max saved those last 5 or 6 laps.
And also, just one more question before you go. This is build day for iRacing, so much different thing for you guys to tackle as drivers. What are your initial impressions about the stock car and the road courses, or did you notice any changes behind the wheel?
Yeah, when I pitted under green, I went out and drove through the S's as hard as I had been, and it spun out. And thank goodness Bailey Curry was ready for it because he didn't kill me, and I only lost a few seconds. But the tire model is really fun. It makes you really have to work in a lot of heat to the tires and get some heat in the brakes, and it makes it for fun racing. I mean, you saw the fall off. I really felt like if I had more of a buffer to Brandon and Scott there, I'd be able to hold them off. But it's just the way it is. It's a lot of fun. iRacing makes it a lot of fun. They're always working to make it better, and just appreciative to them and appreciative to Manan for putting this show on.
All right, Colin. Well, congratulations putting that shot to clear Chevrolet up in second place, and it's been an exciting couple of weeks to watch you go toe to toe here with Brandon Hawk, and hopefully there's a couple more.
Hopefully I can win one of them. That'd be a lot of fun.
Well, we'll see if you can do that. You've been awfully close the last couple of weeks. We'll see if you get it done these last couple of weeks of the season. So Colin Furton brings it home in second in the number 68 Coastal Carolina Chevrolet. Go shots for that one. And then, of course, we'll throw it over to Justin Prince. He's caught up with Jacob Fisher, who brings it home in third.
Yes, indeed. Another strong run tonight for the Space Station Gaming Machine, who had a very entertaining battle, to say the very least, with Scott Hecker tonight. Talk us through that fight as it eventually, unfortunately, I think for both of you, led to contact in the S's. Hard contact.
Yeah. I'm really bummed about that. I'm not gonna lie. I was gutted as soon as it happened. We on the first run before we pit, 11, 12, lap 11, lap 12. I think he and I were pretty close on times, and I think we kind of stagnated where we were on track. And I knew that he and I were going to be about the same pace for the rest of the race if we went green. And coming out on that green flag after everybody pitted, and in the second half of the race, cutting through traffic. Once all of that was done, and it was Scott and Leighton in front of me, I knew if I ran him down, I was going to have to stick with Scott, and I was going to have to get around him. And I mean, we were tit for tat, we were pretty even almost all the way around. So if he was going to slip, I was going to try to take it. And if I got in front of him and I slipped, I'm sure he would have taken it too. And, it's just, we were racing each other hard and got into each other. And when we touched, I think we hooked. Really, if our cars didn't hook together, we probably would have made it through that all right. But I mean, as soon as we touched, I couldn't unhook from him. And fortunately, we both crashed. But, I'm bummed. It's not how the way I race, and it's not the way that he races either. So I hate that both of us ended up with torn up race cars, and only one of us on the podium. I would have loved to finish second and third, but that is what it is. You just gotta, when it happens, you just gotta shake it off and finish the rest of the race because you still don't want to give up those positions.
Of course, though, as well, it's been interesting the past couple of weeks with the competition yellow at the end of stage 2. How has that changed up the strategies and how you and Will Rogers approach this series? Keep in mind that your teammate / boss, Will Rogers, ran out of gas on the last lap.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure what what that was all about. I think myself and Will and a couple other drivers that were all on the same Discord channel were pretty clear on on what we wanted to do for fuel. And I mean, I made it and a couple others made it too. So I'm not exactly sure what happened there, but I mean, the competition caution definitely, it hangs in the back of my mind at least. I'm a big fan of these road courses just going green the whole way because you kind of set your own pace and run your own race. And once you're through it, you're through it. But on restarts, it puts you right back in the thick of it. And just like you saw on that restart, I think we were three wide, 2 rows deep. So you kind of reset and almost start the race over again at that restart. But hopefully, in your strategy, it pans out that that's the last time you stop. So you just kind of go like hell from there. But it's definitely changed the way that you approach these races. It saved my butt last week at Road America. I was torn up pretty bad, and that pit stop kind of got me the reset to catch back up to everybody to try again. But all in all, it doesn't really change a whole lot. If you have the speed, you have the speed, and if you don't, you don't.
Couple more races on the campaign. What's the approach now for you? Because, of course, the drop week factors in after next week's race, and you have Rogers, who has been in the championship fight, who had that rough performance this evening that maybe is drop. You, of course, had that P8 or the 40 total points, I should rather say, scored last week. What's kind of now the approach for Indianapolis and the Charlotte Roval?
Just consistency and point them to death. It's the best way I can really approach it. I burned my drop week 1. I wasn't here, so pretty much every race from here on out is a points race. I just got to keep my head up and keep knocking them off and do the best I can. We finish third every week from here on out, be in pretty good shape, and just wherever we end up, where we end up.
Congratulations, the podium tonight, Jacob. We'll see how you do next week.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
Jacob Fisher, third tonight. We'd like to thank him, along with your race winner, Brendan Hawkins, as well as second place finisher, Colin Fern, for taking the time to speak with us during post-race coverage here on SDN Racing. Now, Blake, first things first, your final thoughts after what was an exciting second half of the race, let's put it that way, an exciting race in general.
Yeah, it seemed to be pretty straightforward through these first couple of stages, and then all of a sudden, everything that we thought was strategy, with guys racing hard side by side, a couple of intentional wrecks. I mean, we pretty much had it all here through the last 20-some-odd laps or so. Made it really, really exciting, and everything that this series looks to showcase, bringing these stock cars onto these road courses. It's just been a lot of fun to watch. And of course, again, that last couple of battles, just very interesting stuff. Colin Fern pulling some strategy to no doubt gain him a couple of positions. Just nice to see everything kind of come full circle here. We had it all here at the Glen. So it's fun to watch, and we got a couple more weeks left of it.
Let's take a look at your upcoming events, as once again, we're at Indianapolis Motor Speedway for the Ring Around the Roadies' 5th race of the campaign. That will take place on December 16th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on SDN Racing. Once again, that SDN Racing, you can find that on YouTube, Twitch, as well as on Facebook, and many more different types of action coming up as well, including the Grit Ultimate Driver Challenge, Monday night, December the 14th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Podium Esports. That's at Lime Rock Park, where you can find everything from Pro 2 trucks racing against Indy cars racing against late models, just like it was over at the Legends Oval. That was interesting, to say the very least, just like how it was interesting how the eNASCAR iRacing Pro Series race shaped up at Dover last week. Next week, it goes to the Charlotte Motor Speedway. How will the teams react to the new build? Find out Tuesday, December 15th at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Once again, you can watch that at Podium and on Podium 2. But with that, it's time to say goodbye for tonight's action. For producer Zach Johnson, for Blake McCandless, for Justin Prince, it's time to say goodnight. Thank you for tuning in for tonight's action for Ring Around the Roadies, and we'll see you next race. You've been watching the McConaughey Setup Shop No Boot for You 100. Congratulations to Brendan Hawkins, his 4th victory of the Ring Around the Roadies, presented by Fort Worth Screen Printing Season.